Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. Sorry for the delay. We'll get started in a few minutes, but we got a couple pre-show things. Peter leads off with something with a sport that I don't watch.
So it's funny. I was a big basketball guy back in the 80s, the days of Bird and Jordan and Magic. And I was in high school and I like to play ball a bit. My youngest son is a huge basketball guy. In fact, after he won the city championships, he gave up hockey and he went all in on basketball. Loves them both, but as a parent, I like basketball more. It's a warm gym, and a $200 pair of shoes is nothing compared to hockey gear. So bring on ball. So interesting enough, I gotten to learn a little bit more about basketball and some of the stars now. And yes, we all know the LeBron James, the Steph Currys, the Westbrooks and stuff. But I saw something come up on my Twitter feed today that is absolutely incredible. James Harden has put up consecutive games of 57 points.
Mm-hmm.
Not one player on his team has an assist on any of those points.
Yeah,
that is mind-blowing.
It's
in so many ways
of the game now. It's
indicative of the game, but it speaks to what Harden does. And if you go on to any of your Sports Center highlights, doesn't matter where you are, there's always a Harden highlight. And that guy basically takes delight in making other guys look like crap on the court. His step backs, the broken ankles and stuff. That's amazing. I mean, yes, it's indicative of the core of the sport, Russ, but you go to the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr gives his team a directive to make 300 passes in a game. So that's how far off the curve they are from leading edge of another way, or Harden was. I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think I heard this correctly. I think he has 18 straight games of 30 points or more, and if he has two more games, he ties Wilt Chamberlain for the all-time record of 30 points or more. I'm surprised there aren't more. There hasn't been more players that get that because I mean,
there will be more. There's no defense. There will be more.
Well, there's no defense, and and you always refer to a guy who is as a puck hog in hockey. There are ball hogs in basketball. It's like you just carry the puck or carry the ball up the court. And, if you pass to this guy, it's like a black hole. It never comes back. And, I mean, Harden may have to be that way because I don't really know about the supporting cast that he has in Houston. I know that they have Chris Paul, but, that's the thing, Peter. It's like I like the Warriors because they pass the ball. I like that, that they have multiple weapons. They're a very diverse team. I liked those Celtics teams in the 80s when it was Bird and McHale and Parrish and Ainge, and they had Bill Walton for a year, and they always had somebody come in who was an extra weapon. It was entertaining. Now it's like one or two guys, and they're like LeBron, one or two guys, and everything funnels through them, and it's just boring. It's really boring. And I get it. I mean, basketball is clearly more popular than hockey in terms of the ratings, in terms of what it brings in terms of the billions of dollars they bring in revenue. But if you're asking me what's the better sport to watch, I would rather watch a hockey game, every day, including Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take away the NBA guys are great athletes, but
yes, no doubt.
The liberties that they get now in a game is crazy. I'm looking at Harden's career numbers, which right now he's at a 23.7, and he's had 2 30-point years in a row. Really, he's the modern-day Bob McAdoo. That's what he is. Because Bob McAdoo ended his career with like a 22.7. He had 3 consecutive years of 30-something points a year. Bob McAdoo wouldn't pass to anybody. But he could light it up.
Yeah. And I saw Bob McAdoo in Buffalo. I mean, I was 8 or 9 years old, but I remember watching games on TV. He
also did it with a guy with his hand with hands in his face and pushing him around, and Harden doesn't. So that's where these guys get a tremendous edge. But Harden is a great athlete. I can't take it away.
And let's.
But here's the other thing, Russ. You go back, the NBA, like the NFL, and there's people like, and I'm sort of one of them, who think Joe Montana is the best quarterback to ever play because he had to play before the rules changed in the NFL, favoring receivers and turning into a passing league. Just remember, when Jordan played, there was no double teaming allowed, and defending the paint was against the NBA rules. These guys actually have a harder time than the likes of the guys in the 80s. And that's that was something someone pointed out to me today, who's a friend of mine who writes on the Cavaliers for a blog called Fear the Sword. Check him out. Little plug for Justin. But he's sort of the guy I go to when I want to understand these details and historical things. And there's a lot of things that change in those sports, and I think that gets overlooked in the modern NBA compared to what we saw 30 years ago in the 80s. I mean, it doesn't take away from what those guys did. They were remarkable too. I mean, we know the era debate, right? Like, and I think the era debate, the one that really where it all is super interesting probably is baseball. And Russ, you would understand better than anyone else. Mm-hmm. Would Sandy Koufax be Sandy Koufax now if he was born now, right? Like, and all those different things. How do they translate? And it's pretty interesting stuff.
He would have had like a 15-year pitching career because they would have cured his elbow problem instantly. Instead, he pitched in 3 or 4 years of complete pain, even with his dominance.
Yeah. Transfer that to hockey, because I can't remember who it was that I was listening to on radio. But he was basically saying that Bobby Orr was the most dominant player in the history of hockey, in terms of the era that he played and the difference between him and the next best player, that he was more dominant than Jordan in basketball, than Gretzky later on. And he did it on one knee, or did it on 0 knees, because I think he hurt both of them. Imagine if he had played in the modern day with modern medical technology and had, instead of invasive open surgery on his knees, just arthroscopic surgery or the repairs that can be made. I mean, his career ended after what, 12? It was 12 years after. It was 66 to 78.
I mean, look, Joe Namath, Gale Sayers, they also, could have been amazing for a long time. But I'm still going to go back, Peter. And if you want to eliminate the 80s, then if you want to talk about 70s basketball, that was when, Chamberlain and those guys were around. No, but here, not much has changed other than guys are faster now. Yeah. Guys aren't necessarily stronger. Nobody was stronger to Will Chamberlain. I don't think there's anybody as strong in the NBA now that's at Will Chamberlain's strength.
Right.
But again, the pounding that these guys took under the boards, elbows to the face and everything, happens occasionally in the NBA, but it happened all the time in the 70s. And so when those guys averaged 30.4 points a game then, they really had to fight for it.
Yeah, and the difference is that the big men now are more weapons from the outside than they are on the inside. I mean, the kid from Dallas, and then and Durant's 6'11".
Are you talking about the Greek Freak? Is that?
No, that's Gianni. That's Giannis. That's
my son.
He's Milwaukee. That's right.
Yeah, he's Milwaukee.
But there's a kid for Dallas who's also a big body, who's more of a 3-point shooter. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these. Porzingis with the Knicks when he's not injured, they're more threats from him. When they play him, they're more threats from outside. So anyway, we'll talk about that, and other pre-shows. I just want to say this because this is annoying, and I think most people who are not vegetarians have to deal with this on a daily or weekly basis. When you go to the supermarket and you go to the deli section, and it's apparently, it's very. Today was very busy because there's expected to be a big snowstorm this weekend, so everybody's.
So you got to load up on your turkey breast.
Got to load up on your ham. Got to load up on your salami and all that stuff. And when you have someone who comes in and orders 3 slices.
Oh, come on!
I swear to God, not a half pound, not a pound. Can I have 3 slices of bologna, but I want it super thin? I want to take my cart and ram it into them. That's
where you go. You take a baguette and you try to shove it through their head.
Practice patience, guys. Everybody. Maybe
that's wrong.
Maybe it's for a dog, or maybe that person's on a budget. Come on, Mike.
If you're not ordering
bologna's $2.99 a pound,
I want 100 grams. Or what? I don't know. What the heck do you use down there? When you order something, do you order like an ounce?
It's a quarter of a pound. Yeah, you just said a quarter of a pound, half a pound.
Russ,
I know, Peter. Don't even go there.
I saw the price tag on it. It was 43 cents.
Oh,
order a half a pound. It's $1.50. You jerk. Anyway, okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, January 17th, 2019.
I'm Peter Tessier in Winnipeg, and I'm with Mike on deli etiquette.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I worked in a deli. I get all the weirdness. I do.
I'm Michael Agello, and screw that guy. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com.
Wow.
We'll start with the Anaheim Ducks, who had not have a win in a dozen games. And you can see that, I don't know, you can't say panic, but you can definitely say that there's a want for GM Bob Murray to shake things up, because in the last, I think, 3 or 4 days, they've made 5 trades, most of them minor. And I got the list here. I'll just read it off quickly here. Cogliano for Devon Shore was what happened a couple days ago. Then Pontus, we'll talk about this one here first, Russ. Pontus Aberg, who was their second leading goal scorer, they trade to the Minnesota Wild for Justin Kluse, who was in the AHL.
Right.
Now, the only thing I can think of here is because Aberg has been up and down. He was claimed on waivers. He was sent to San Diego. Then he brought him back up. It may be in the fact that they were going to send him down and they knew that they were going to lose him on waivers possibly, and they decided to trade him instead of lose him on waivers. But why are you sending down a guy who's your second leading goal scorer when you can't score goals?
Well, I guess he's a defensive liability. But it's interesting that the other day I was asked to comment on what I think the Wild needs, and I went through it, and I said, at the end of the day, they need a scorer. They got a scorer, and they got a good one. They got a guy with speed and occasionally has a little jam. He just doesn't play a 200-foot game. But, what they traded him for is basically a third line or bust kind of player. Mm-hmm. So really, again, Anaheim is just doing this because Carlisle is a defensive coach first and probably said, listen, he's killing me defensively. Okay, we'll get rid of him. Like, they're just doing anything now to try and placate Randy Carlisle and get him to get this team back in playoff position, and they are going to desperate measures at the moment.
Well, ironically, the defenseman that they traded for does not remind me of Rod Langway, Peter, because they traded Luke Shannon in a low pick to Vancouver for Michael Del Zotto, who hadn't been playing recently, and Vancouver retained $750K of his $3 million salary. I mean, based on Carlisle, this guy's a bottom pairing guy, because I don't think he'll
be bottom pairing for them, but he can skate.
Yes,
and I guess at the end of the day, they're looking for guys who could skate the puck out of the zone. Del Zotto can do that. What I think is funny is, first off, people in Vancouver congratulating Benning simply because he got a 7th-round pick.
Yeah,
the odds of a 7th-round pick becoming an NHLer is like 2%. So, like, the fact that was thrown in, it's like, really, you're going to congratulate? You've ripped Jim Benning all these other trades, all these other times, but now because he got a 7th thrown in, you feel warm at night and you sleep better? Come on.
I think they're being sarcastic, Russ. I think they're congratulating him on getting anything for Del Zotto. But Peter, what did you think?
No, I don't think so, because they said they are the one that gives up a pick. Now he got one back.
Yeah.
I think that was sincere.
What did you think of the deal, Peter?
Well, I think the deal is good for the Canucks because they had to retain some salary on Del Zotto.
Yeah.
But they get some freedom from him too. And Schen's expiring at the end of the year, and I mean, Schen's going to be.
Well, he'll be in Utica, right? I don't think he's going to make.
Yeah, he'll be in Utica.
He's in Utica already. He reported.
Whatever. They like, for what Del Zotto is, you can have Luke Schenn there, and it's not going to change anything really. I mean, you're shuffling deck chairs. You just save some salary or whatever, and you got an extra 7th-round pick for helping out the Ducks for whatever they wanted Del Zotto for.
Well,
that's all it is, right?
The only thing, no. There's more to it than that. For the people that like clubbing in Vancouver, they've lost a DJ. Michael Del Zotto.
That's true. Del Zotto. You know what? I always actually found that kind of cool about him. And they used to bring his mixes in. He liked doing it. There's some interesting stories about him. I think showing up at if I recall, this might not be right, but if I recall, he showed up at the legendary Canucks hangout one night, the Roxy down on Granville, and maybe we'll take you guys there when we're at Vancouver. Yeah. And boy, will we look out of place.
Yeah, I'll wear my black. I'll wear my
last trip there, which was a while ago. I went to the Granville Brewery, and it was great.
Oh yeah, and you know, and he showed up there. I have some funny stories about Canucks at the Roxy from my younger years, but
just one one further thing about this trade. How would it feel to be Luke Schenn in the sense that you were in the AHL, but you were in San Diego, in nice sunny San Diego with beaches and everything? Are there beaches in Utica? I don't.
Well, are they on the lake?
No. It's just
It's just in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, there's a casino there, so you can go to.
There's a casino everywhere now, Mike.
Yeah, that's true.
But let's talk about the part about Luke Schenn. Like Peter said, Luke Schenn's never going to play for the Canucks. He might if they have like 3 deep hurt and he has to come up for a week, but he can't really play at the NHL level anymore. So, in a way, at least Anaheim got a guy that could skate. And so if they felt like they needed that just to, help them through their rough time here, fine, whatever.
And the other deal was Derek Grant for Joe Blandisi, which is basically a trade of fourth liners because both of them have been called up. So
apparently the Gulls are very heartbroken, though. They tweeted about it, and again, it helps teams at the AHL level, which again is good because look, we can't be snobs here. There are AHL fans that want their teams to win the Calder Cup, and some of these trades will help those teams. I don't know if Utica's in the running or not, but if they are, Luke Schenn will help them tremendously on the AHL level.
He's making $800,000 a year to be there. Like, have fun. But I might just to point this out, because I actually hadn't looked at Luke Schenn's stats in a little while, and I came across his contract history. And lo and behold, back in 2011, it was the Toronto Maple Leafs who gave him a 5-year, $18 million deal.
Yeah, they gave it to him right before they traded him. I mean, it was I think it was in the middle of the 2011-12 season, and then that summer they did the 1-for-1 for James.
It was right after because he played 79 games for the Leafs in 2011-12.
Yeah,
so after the lockout.
Right. But I mean, at that point he was. I mean, that was a Burke signing, and but I think it was basically to lock him up because I think JVR had been locked up too. There had been talk about that deal for 6 months before it actually happened, which was bizarre. but just
hold on. What? Thomas posted something that Phil Esposito made a good point. I always will argue that, and he said back in the day. Teams had one or two truly elite players, and the rest were just mediocre in comparison. That's not really true.
That's crap. I
don't know what Phil is remembering. I mean, you go look at when the Rangers had the gag line; they had 5 or 6 elite offensive players. You go look at those Bruins teams; they always had 5 or 6 elite.
I mean, please, the Buffalo Sabres in '75 when they went to the Cup final had 2 really good offensive lines: the French Connection and the Craig Ramsey, Don Luce, Danny Gare line. They were 2 lines, at least 2 lines deep. Now, if you compare them to today, I mean, these the players are a lot faster and a lot stronger than they were back then. But no, the lineups were deep.
I don't know what Phil's remembering. I just don't.
Yeah, well, please listen to some of Phil's color commentary during a Tampa Bay broadcast, and you'll know what he's thinking about. But just finishing off on Anaheim. I mean, right now, they're actually, even though they've lost, they've not won in 12 in a row or 12 games straight. They're still in it, but Kessler's on the IR, Silfverberg's on the IR. I mean, you would think eventually this team has got to turn it around, don't you think?
Not this year. I don't know. Last year was the last year I had hope for them. This year is the year where I think it comes close and then the wheels come off. Like if Getzlaf gets hurt, if somebody else big gets hurt, they're toast. And they're wasting a year on John Gibson. It's a shame, but it's just the way it is. I actually heard something more alarming than that. On Hockey Central, Doug McLean was all gung-ho about Vancouver, saying that they're a real contender. And I'm just like, I don't understand. Now, maybe Peter could answer this for me. Is he literally doing that just to sort of stoke the Canadian egos there? Or does he really believe that?
Honestly, look, Doug McLean, I get it. He's an interesting personality, right? He's vibrant in how he speaks. He's got mannerisms. He's good on camera from a presentation point of view. And then you have to listen. And that's where it all falls apart. It's a lot like Bill Waters. And I used to see Bill Waters used to have a regular segment on TSN 1290 here in the noon hour, and I'd hear it when I was driving around. And I'd sometimes have to pull over and like dunk my head in snow because I'd be like, Bill, at one point you were relevant and you're not in touch anymore. And Doug's kind of like that too. He's a bit of a hype machine. Yeah. And I think with excuse me, the talent that Rogers has in its network now and stuff, they don't need him to be that guy anymore. They need to pull him back and say, do some research and then come back.
Well, I mean, he is gregarious, and I'll come to the defense of Bill Waters because I've had I've had a relationship with Bill Waters going back like 15 years, and I do podcasts with him occasionally, and it's like he's gregarious, but he is a pretty well informed guy. Doug McLean, I think, when he says things like that, I almost think it's to stoke up ratings for Vancouver games on Sportsnet because I mean, yes, they're in the mix for the playoffs. Yes, they're much improved. They're much better than I thought that they were going to be. Are they a contender? No friggin' way. I mean, in the West where you have Vegas and Nashville and Winnipeg and Calgary, they're not a pimple on the butt of any of those teams. So, I mean, are they good? Could they make the playoffs? Yeah. They're a first round out if they play any one of those four teams I just
But they're not making it. I mean, come on.
No, I know, but Russ, they want to keep the Vancouver fan tuning in. They want, if Elias Pettersson is playing.
That's the worst thing. See, to me, that's the worst thing you could do.
No.
I agree.
Is to give
the Vancouver fans tune in. They tune in because Vancouver is a weird niche market when it comes to media.
Right.
I don't think there is any market in all of hockey that has the same similar weird dynamic of media, secondary media, bloggers, and the weird venom that gets shot back and forth as Vancouver does. It's weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, yet it exists. I'm sure there's some very interesting theories that people would say off air here and in other shows as to why.
Sure.
But regardless, it's different. And I think, if you're trying to penetrate that market where there is a very different sort of media approach than there is in other markets in Canada, you have to come in with some flaming hot takes or some stuff like that. That'll do it.
Well, I can just say this because I look at the Vancouver franchise, and I've said for years, Peter, that they should try to rebuild, and they've sort of fought against that with some of the moves that they've made over the last few years, like signing Gagne, and he's buried in the AHL, and Delzato, and then this year with guys like Roussel, bringing in these stopgaps. But the core young players, they should be excited about. Besser is a great talent. Pettersson is a great talent. Quinn Hughes may very well be whoever they get with their first round pick this year, if it's high.
But that's what McLean was talking about. But they're not leading them to the playoffs.
No.
I mean, but they're still in the mix because everybody is in the mix right now in the West. That's what I'm saying. It's like
it'll change though. It'll change.
Right, and this is the dangerous thing is as you get closer to the deadline, if you're 2, 3, 4 points behind, this is a team that should not add. This is a team that if they make the playoffs with what they got, that's great. If they go out and trade young assets to add players on a run for the playoffs, that is stupid.
No, exactly. Well, they certainly Benning has said he'd like to have Alex Edler stay. Yeah. Alex Edler is a guy who should be saying, thinking this is one of my last chances to take a cup run. Who can you get me to, Jim? Maybe I'll come back in the off season. He likes it there. He's been there all his entire career. Another name that popped up that I saw that I think we need to consider about as a possibility for trade is Marcus Granlund. I think there could be some teams who might like him. Remember 2 seasons ago, he had 19 goals in 16 games. He's got 7 goals right now and 40 something. I mean, he's a serviceable depth guy.
He is. No, he is. That's a good point. That's a good point.
And he's on 1.475, something like that, and he's an RFA. I think Granlund is a guy that you could see.
I think they're going to keep him though. I think Benning likes him.
I think they like him, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone made a pitch for him because they wanted that depth in there.
And someone was asking about their pipeline. I mean, look no further than the World Juniors. They had Utunen, the defenseman, who they just drafted, who looked good. They had Madden's kid, who looked really good, Tyler Madden.
Yeah.
So they've got a pipeline. I mean, they have everything, but just not a playoff team this year. They don't have that.
Yeah, and the rumors are out there, continue to be out there about them possibly shopping Goldobin because it's just not working out there. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But I mean, that's one thing. But if you trade the defenseman that you were just talking about, or if you trade Olli Levy or somebody that to get a guy to come in to make the playoffs, I think that's counterproductive. If you make it just organically, that's great. Then Besser and Pettersson and their young players get some playoff experience when you didn't expect it to happen. But you don't go out searching for it when you're probably a year or two away from really being the team that you envision. That's
honestly, I don't know why they would be shopping Goldobin. I mean,
well, that's just the talk out there, Russ.
There is some talk because it doesn't seem like I think Travis Green has trust issues with him.
Yeah,
he can't, and it's actually a lot like what's going on with Nick Patan in Winnipeg. The coach and the player, like people see value in the player, they see a use for him given other roster decisions. Yet the coach doesn't.
Yeah, he's at a half a point a game. I mean, on a team like that, that's good, and he's never really had a chance, and he's showing he belongs in the league. This is where I will differ from Travis Green. I think he's a good coach, but sometimes coaches can be too rigid. And if they trade Goldobin, they're going to regret it.
Yeah. No, that was a good get for them when they traded Jannik Hansen.
Yeah.
And, that's one of those things where, if you wonder what the conversations are between the GM and the coach when you talk about a player and usage, and then seeing as I think he's an RFA this year, that's going to be a really interesting thing that comes down to it. I mean, the Canucks hold the leverage, but if the guy's not getting what he needs, he's got to have some concerns.
I mean, he's even cut his plus minus in half. I mean, again, I think NHL coaches, I think NHL coaches have to understand that you are going to have some players on your team that are not going to be 200-foot guys. It's the way it is.
And what that might tell you, Peter, is that they don't want to qualify him. Or if they would begrudgingly qualify him because they don't want to lose him for nothing, but they don't really want to qualify him. So you might as well try to trade him now and get something back that you might be able to use. But
I'll tell you what, if I'm the Islanders, I go get him now. Yeah. I will go. I'll give you
Josh Hosang for Goldobin.
I would
black sheep for black sheep.
Yeah, I'll do it. But right now, I'll get more production out of Goldobin instantly than I will get.
I think Hosang could go someplace and make the Islanders regret trading him.
Sure.
But you know what? I just sort of pulled up some comparison stats between the two. That might be a really good trade.
Yeah.
If you believe that Josh Hosang, you can that's the player you want to swap out for.
Right.
And there's probably more upside for Vancouver in that. And Goldobin might excel really well under someone like Barry Trotz, who's already been through this with a team like Nashville, right? That's actually a really interesting trade.
All right, not to spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's actually the funny thing is I think that the ramifications of the news that came out yesterday are more important than the actual news. The NHL and the PA announced yesterday, I think it was a little before some of the games started at 7:00, that they had constructive meetings regarding, they're negotiating essentially the CBA, but they decided that they're not going to be able to schedule the World Cup of Hockey for the fall of 2020. Now, nobody's really heartbroken about that because, I mean, I watched some of those games, and other than the Team North America games, it was dreadful hockey, and I really didn't want to watch it too much.
What does that mean? There wasn't a really good excuse for not having it, though, in that press
scheduling. It's all scheduling. They basically.
What is it that's holding? You're talking about a year and a half down the road.
Right.
What is it about the scheduling that far in advance that could be problematic?
Well, I guess basically they were not going to schedule events and pay, rentals for buildings and things of that nature unless they had a guarantee from the PA that they weren't going to opt out in the summer of 2019.
So there's something else that made them make that decision, and that must be the Olympics.
Oh.
That must be the fact that the Olympics are still not a guarantee either then.
Well, it's not simply just the Olympics. Apparently like it's, because there could be a lockout at that point. That's the thing.
No,
Like,
I get it, but you could plan for these things, and if there's a lockout, I'm sure these arenas will give you a break on what you put in as far as, for the order for the rent. But think about it. This far in advance, there's no reason to turn down the World Cup of Hockey unless something else negotiating wise is going awry, and I got to believe that that's the Olympics.
Yeah, well,
that might mean that the World Cup of Hockey would take place right before the CBA expired,
right?
If I'm
Like
correct.
it did
So if there's no agreement on the CBA,
right,
they don't want to have to force these guys in. I think the statement basically says, we're not there to go to the World Cup of Hockey yet because we haven't solved these other problems. Now, we all know I'm the World Cup of Hockey's biggest fan.
That's a bad sign.
I'm not shedding a tear.
That's a bad sign.
I think it's more of a process sign than it's a bad sign. I don't think you can take it one way or the other.
Well, there's no good faith there. I mean, what happened to good faith? That's
I think you wouldn't force people. I don't think you'd want to do a revenue thing prior to the season without having another CBA in place. Well, that's what it is.
According to Pierre LeBrun, this is what he just mentioned in a little article in the Athletic. The fact that the NHL won't commit to a 2020 World Cup without a guarantee from the PA that they wouldn't act on the CBA reopener for the same month was always going to be a tough sell. But he's basically saying that it's still optimistic that they're talking right now that some sort of agreement could be decided before the two sides have the option next summer or this summer, this upcoming summer, of whether to walk away from the CBA. So I think they want to get the extension, or at least the full in the last 2 years of that CBA agreed upon before and maybe the World Cup would be in 2021 instead of 2020. I don't know, but
then they could have just come to an agreement for that. You know what I mean? It's just
right, but they're obviously using it as leverage, Russ.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't like it. There should be something for goodwill. It's not like the players didn't make anything. Like, players on Team Canada split $500,000. Then they got an additional $500 that went to Hockey Canada. Then Team Europe split $250. I mean, there was money that the players made on this. It wasn't like they make more on this than they make on the Olympics.
I think I heard it was that they made about $50 million on the World Cup. So that would be motivation for
$50 million?
$50 million.
Yeah, I'm talking about what players got, Peter, but that's the total. Yeah,
$50 million.
But I'm saying that's what I'm saying.
Like, oh my God!
I would. Hey, Peter.
No, but wait. Before you say something, Mike. So, Peter, that's what I'm saying. If you can't agree to sign on the dotted line for that, there's a problem.
I want to know who's spending this money to make $50 million for that.
It was Toronto. It was put in Toronto for a reason.
Yeah, no, right? I understand that, but oh my God,
I mean, they were charging $12 for sushi, right, Mike? Or 20, I mean.
I don't know.
It's funny. I got it through the Winnipeg Jets. I got a ticket offer for that thing too, where I could have bought tickets as part of a package, and the package was insane. Like, it was ridiculous how expensive it was.
All right, touch on a couple games from last night. I checked in on the Senators and Avalanche, and people in Colorado have to be concerned. I mean, they did win in Toronto earlier in the week, and that broke up their recent struggles. But now they lose to Ottawa, a team that they're sort of in disarray right now. The Avalanche have gone 2-8-2. In their last 12 games. And Varlamov was not strong, Russ, in that game. Mm-hmm. And I think, and I've heard this mentioned a couple times, they played the Islanders in December, and Barry Trotz shut down the McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog line. And whatever he did to do it, teams have basically been taking the tactic from him and adjusting to it. And they, now those guys are still scoring, but they're not scoring as much. And they don't really have a lot of offense other than those three guys. I mean, I think Colorado's still going to make the playoffs, but it's right now it's a struggle for them.
It's true. I'll urge our audience, go to virtualglobetrotting.com. You could see a ton of hockey players' houses because Peter wants to know where the money's going. Even Jan Hayda has an impressive house. It should go no further than that. But, I mean, they have Sidney Crosby's regular home, his summer home. Like, you go look at these stately manors and then go ask me, Peter, where's the money being spent? As far as this, Trotz has had a great effect on them, Mike. And the defense is everything. I talked about it before. The defense is what's driving this club right now. And that's, of course, the defense affects the goals against average, and that's why they have the best goals against in the league. Trotz has done an amazing job with this. Players have bought in, and they have just enough personnel to pull it off in the regular season.
Right.
I don't know if they have it to pull off in the postseason, but Leonard's been Leonard too, and that's been a big deal too.
Yeah, but what about the Abs in terms of the struggles of the Abs?
Well, they've hit a rut, and that's why I think they're going to upgrade their goaltending. I think the Varlamov train has gone off the track. I'm not even sure what Grubauer is doing for him. I haven't really tracked him.
I mean, I haven't seen Grubauer. I mean, I'm sure he's played recently, unless he's injured. I think I saw him. I think they took a shot at him on the bench yesterday. But I've seen. Varlamov played against the Leafs. He played against Colorado. I mean, they're probably going to sink or swim with him because when he's hot, he is a really, really good goaltender, and he carried them to a playoff spot a few years ago. But
I know, but he is getting a little older, and Grubauer is actually 9-5-3. But he has an .895 save percentage. That's not going to cut it.
And Peter, I thought that Colorado, and it looked like they had improved a little bit defensively early in the year when, because I always had a problem with them because it was always Tyson Berry and Eric Johnson and then not much else. But Zadorov had been playing better, and they brought in Ian Cole, and their defense looked better, and they were getting.
Zadorov has been hurt, so that's definitely hurt them.
Right, but they were getting all that scoring from those three guys, and they were lucky to get secondary scoring from Soderberg against Toronto on Monday. But if you can't really depend on Matt Calvert and Soderberg to carry you if they do shut down that number one line.
The thing about Colorado and Winnipeg had just played them, and the Jets, they should have won that game easier, but the whole team through the lineup, and yes, it's not as talented as your top 3 or 4 guys on that team, but they attack with such a fury. There is absolutely no pause in their game. It would drive you batty to play against. Bednar has them doing things that maybe they're overachieving in terms of what the results are, but they get a little puck luck sometimes. They're going to be a team's worst nightmare to play against in the playoffs. Because they just don't stop.
No.
They're the Energizer Bunny. It's crazy.
I'll tell you what, though, it's goaltending and defense for them, but Varlamov's not good. He's got a .906. But listen to some of these games. I mean, just this month, he's had 1, 2, 3 games. He's given up 4 goals. 5 games. He's given up 3 goals. He's had a game where he gave up 6 and 5 in December. Like he actually had. He had a game where he gave up 6 in November. Like this is not the same guy.
No, and he only faced 20 shots against Toronto on Monday, and he gave up 3 goals. So
let's break this down. What's happened here is Varlamov's not the same again. That's not a shock. It's happened to him before, and Grubauer is still a backup. He really is.
So we talked yesterday about Bobrovsky. So would you put Colorado in the Bobrovsky?
Absolutely. I think they're going to be right after the Calgary Flames. I mean, they need a goalie. Now, maybe they'll go Jimmy Howard. Maybe they'll just do that.
Right.
But they have to get a goaltender playing better than Varlamov is, and Grubauer is not good enough to carry them for any length of time.
Not to lump up on David Rittich, but I mean,
you hate him, Mike. You've never said anything nice about him.
Shut up! I do not hate him, but I didn't see a lot of this game. But the Sabres won 4-3 in overtime, and somebody did watch the game told me that Rittich was not impressive in that game. I believe it was Jack Eichel got a goal in overtime for the Sabres, and that they've been having some problems, so it was a much needed victory. But again, the goaltending situation. I mean, Mike Smith is pretty much a non-factor there, and it's essentially Rittich as the number one. So I would think that they would be in the market for a Howard or a Bobrovsky based on price, because how many opportunities are you going to get with a team that is, playing really well with that line of Lindholm and Monahan and Goudreau and guys like Kachuk and Giordano being a contender for the Norris? When you have that team at that point, you sort of have to make that move to give it a shot. You
do. And Mike, I have it. I have the video where you basically said when Rittich was playing for HC Dukla that he would never play in the NHL. I have that video. I'll break it out if you want me to.
Go ahead.
But
you're gonna blackmail me?
Yeah. But no, they are so close that. And this is such a good year compared to the up and downs that they've been having lately, that they really do need to make this move. And if they have to lose Gillies, fine. If they have to lose even Rittich, fine. They're going to have to do something like that if they really want to get back to the Stanley Cup. If not, if they just stay the course, they're going to get eliminated second round probably. And it's simply going to be probably just a bridge too far for Rittich. Now, what does that mean for next year? It means they still have a good regular season goalie, but I think what we're learning here in this league now is just having like a guy that's a little bit above NHL average, which I think Rittich has been this year, is not really enough to lead you to the promised land. Usually you have to be a little better than that, and we don't know if he has that gear in him. Nobody does.
But I don't see, Peter, I don't see Calgary giving up a number one for Jimmy Howard, which is purportedly the price that they're asking for him. Or I would think it'd probably be more for Bobrovsky, unless, they think that his value is down because he's a pure rental. But I don't know whether Treliving would pay that kind of price for a goaltender, but I think he should.
It'll be real. I think Calgary's a pretty fascinating team. Come to the deadline. I mean, they don't have a ton of space cap wise. Deadline cap space is $5 million. So, yes, but it means they've got to make sure nothing goes wrong the rest of the season, right? And you've always got to have some wiggle room there. So they acquire another goalie, but what if this is just the natural progression, just like we saw with Pittsburgh, where Matt Murray took over and Fleury? Like, what if that's just what it is? And there isn't a whole need to say, well, Mike Smith, you're now a backup because you're 35 years old and that's what you are. Like, I mean, it's entirely possible to switch. And I'm not comparing Mike Smith to Marc-Andre Fleury. Let's not go there. I'm comparing the situations in that someone comes out and plays. Sometimes this is how goalies arrive. They just simply are. And, the Flames struck lightning in a bottle when they got Mika Kiprusoff years ago
for a second
round pick. And, Rittich may just sort of, I'm not saying he's going to turn into Kipper, but they may have just found the guy just through the natural evolution of how the team's gone. And you have to give a guy starts and he's there.
It's all about whether Treliving and whether Bill Peters are confident that Rittich it can be the guy going into the playoffs. It's a lot to risk because Mike Smith has a resume, and but he's 35 and he's had a lot of injuries, and I think he's on the shady side of his career. Rittich is unproven, so that's what I'm saying. I think if they go out and they make a deal, first of all, they're probably going to try to jettison Smith and his contract to create space. But if they go out and get Howard, I think, or Bobrovsky, they're the number one. If they go out and get themselves a veteran, probably because they don't have confidence in Smith to be the guy, then maybe Rittich is the one, but they need the option just in case he falters. So I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, because I do think that they have a chance. They have a chance amongst those 3 or 4 teams in the West to really go places. But it's going to be interesting to watch. Okay. One other game I wanted to mention. Well, Russ, just quickly on the game you were at last night, Flyers and Bruins. 42 shots for the Bruins. They only get 3 goals. The Flyers get 4 on 19 shots. Was it Halak or Rask last night?
It was Halak.
Okay. And Halak has been the better of the two.
Halak was good. There was a play where I think James. I almost said James. There's a place where Noah Patrick really should have scored a goal because Halak just showed a little leg extension, and all he had to do was lift it, and he had a wide open net, and he couldn't do it. But it was a good game, and it was one of those. Hold on, Jordan. I got to throw Jordan out, then I'll tell you the rest. So,
this is a live show, folks. Dogs are welcome. But yeah, I mean, I mean, I have a little bit of a problem, and Russ will talk about it when he comes back, of, the continuing use of Carter Hart and the fact that, he played well yesterday, and I'll just keep going down this road. 42 shots. The kid is 20 years old. They can. I don't think this is productive. And this is the thing. The Flyers are not in the playoff race. The Flyers are in the race for the number 1 pick. Or at least they should.
They don't believe that. At least not yet.
Which is baffling.
Yeah, it is baffling. But getting back to it, the fact that they're playing Yuri Laterra again is baffling, because they basically sent Dale Weiss down, and Yuri Laterra basically took his spot. And so I don't understand that. I don't think he's got any trade value. So I don't understand why he's really in there, but he is. And since they're winning games, I guess he's going to stay a little while. This game was one of those where, again, people heard me on Sirius and they heard me talk about Carter Hart. Now, I tweeted they won that game on the strength of Sean Couturier and Carter Hart. But how many of these games do you want teams to pound 40-something shots and really jam the net a lot on Carter Hart for the rest of the season? How many do you think of those you should have him in? That's the bigger question, and that's why I would send him back. I don't care that he's doing well. That's great. That bodes well for the future, but he needs to really be fully prepared. He's 20 years old. They're not making the playoffs. I don't see, if he wins 3 or 4 more games, what that does for their playoff chances. I mean, again, Eck may hate it, but I'll look up their playoff chances, and what are we at, 2%? Yeah. I mean, it's like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. Go ahead, Peter, if you have anything.
No. I was agreeing with you, Russ.
Yeah. Now, as far as the Bruins, they were a little undermanned. I mean, they did have a line of Forsback, Carlson, Donato, and Heinen, which was interesting. But for them, that was their third line. So they were a little undermanned, no Bacchus, those kinds of things. And actually, Marchand played a really clean game. It kind of shocked me a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It is always shocking when he does that.
Yeah. But look, they had a 5-minute power play when Donato got jammed into the sideboards, and they didn't score in that 5 minutes. It went from the end of the second into the beginning of the third, and the Flyers killed it off. That definitely stunned the Bruins a bit. And I got to tell you, I saw Donato after the game, and I think he had an ice pack on his wrist, and his nose was a little messed up. Yeah. So I don't know if he'll play tonight. That'll be interesting to see.
We'll take some questions in the chat, but I got a couple things here, and just one thing on Boston, because I saw them on Saturday. I really think that Don Sweeney is going to probably add before the deadline. And if looking at their, the number 1 line, if they keep it together in the playoffs of Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak, is almost unstoppable. But if a team is able to stop them, then their number 2 line, at least against Toronto on Saturday, was DeBrusk with Krejci and Bacchus. Now, Bacchus wasn't in the lineup, and I think they played that Solaric in his place.
Yes, and he had 2 goals, first 2 of the season. Looked good. I mean, actually, Cassidy was very good the way he managed that, because he goes, if he'd been playing like this all along, why didn't we have him up sooner? He goes, but he goes, it's just one game. And he played really well this one game. He clicked really well. Let's see what happens going forward. I just want to say, for Flyers fans, your chances of the playoffs right now are 0.08. So it went from 0.1 to 0.08. To put that in perspective, the Carolina Hurricanes are 18.8.
Yeah, which means you have no chance.
Yeah.
So, your winning is just actually probably.
Even if they win 5 in a row, their chances will probably be like 1.7.
Right. So, but so, I mean, we'll see if Boston, I'm sure that Sweeney's going to get involved in the trade talks.
I think he will, because I think that's why he's playing all these youngsters now, to see who he can count on and who he can't. And Solaric may be now a guy where that's one less trade he has to make, because if he starts scoring, because he's got a great shot. He is one of those guys that has a really good shot, and he skates well, and he's tricky, and he could be a really good fit for them, actually.
All right, three things, and then we'll take some questions.
Okay.
Darren Dreger came out and talked about Michael Ferland, who's a pending UFA, whose name is out there in the trade market. And, Carolina is still sort of on the outside looking in. I think they're 5 or 6 points out of a wild card spot right now. So they're not ready to give it up yet, but it's 5 weeks before the deadline. And the speculation about Ferland and what he wants and might expect on a new contract as an unrestricted free agent. And the talk was a Tom Wilson type of deal.
No, boy.
Now it's coming out that he's wanting closer to what Evander Kane got from San Jose. And this could be just scare tactic to, maybe make Carolina move him because they have no chance of signing. And we know how fiscally restrained Mr. Dundon is. So if you're saying $7 million for Ferland, they'll be more likely to trade him. But I mean, Peter, I look at this and I'm like, I think he's a good player. I think he'd be a good ad for teams. I would never spend $7 million on Michael Ferland in free agency. And I don't know how much he makes a difference to a team as a late season ad, unless he's in a sort of a top 6 role. What do you think about him?
Michael Ferland has 55 goals, 114 points in 289 games. If someone gives him $6 million or more, they shouldn't have a job.
Right.
Like,
I agree.
It's that simple.
Yep.
Michael Ferland should be a target for a few teams in the playoffs, for a guy who can put the puck in the net, be utilized in different situations, and is an expiring contract. Mm-hmm. He should be looked at that way. And Carolina might get something for him. But the team that acquires him, I don't care if he goes on one of the most epic playoff runs forever with a contender. It's still because he got to a contender. It doesn't make him worth $6 million plus.
All right, let's play a fun game, Peter. Who has more goals, career, Michael Ferland or Alex Chiasson?
Well, I'm going to say Chiasson.
Alex Chiasson. He's got 76. Now he's played 2 more years. Let's say goals per game. Goals per game, Alex Chiasson is at 0.18, and Ferland, let's see. I'll get you Ferland in a minute. I clicked it off accidentally. But Alex Chiasson's more deserving of the money than Michael Ferland, and nobody will give it to him.
Yeah, but Edmonton won't trade Alex Chiasson because he's actually scoring with them.
No, but my point is Edmonton's not giving him $7 million either, but he's more worthy of it than Ferland is.
I'd say you're probably right on that, but but he'll probably end up staying in Edmonton because he has a chance maybe to play with McDavid.
So Ferland is 0.19. They're identical career-wise, but yet Ferland's asking for all this money, and Chiasson scrapes by from year to year on these contracts. Like, that is where Peter's 100% right, and you have to look at that and say, I'm better off trying to pick up a guy like Chiasson instead of giving in to Ferland.
Right, but Chiasson won't be available. That's
you don't know.
Before February 25th, unless Edmonton drops completely out of it, Chiasson will not be available. Ferland will be.
But over the summer he probably will. I think he's only 1 year.
Sure. I that's the thing. I don't think that this talk of what he's looking to get on a free agent deal really means anything to the team that's going to acquire him before February 25th, because I think he's going to be a pure rental. Unless it's a team that's got tons of cap. Like if Toronto is interested in Michael Ferland, he's a pure rental. They're not going to sign him.
Yeah. Chiasson's making $650,000.
Yeah.
He might outperform Ferland for the year. If you're a team and you could pick up Chiasson in the offseason for like 3 years, $7.5 million or something like that, you're laughing.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2, Aaron Portzline tweets that the Columbus Blue Jackets have had trade talks with the Penguins regarding Derek Brassard. Brassard's got him $3 million on he's cap hit for the Penguins is $3 million because salary was retained in the deal that was made with Ottawa last year. Brassard had previously played with the Blue Jackets, 6th overall pick in 2006, and Portzline reports the Blue Jackets need a center, which is not a surprise, but a trade between Pittsburgh and Columbus would be tricky. Plus, it sort of sends mixed signals with what we just talked about Bobrovsky and the other stuff about Panarin. Is this buyer seller? Like they're moving one guys, but they're bringing other ones in. Is that what's going on, or what you think, Russ?
I think that is what's going on. I do. I mean, but it's hard to figure out what's going on this time of the year. It really is.
Yeah.
This is the time of the year. Like we're almost at the All-Star break. I can't tell you half these team strategies. I really can't.
Yeah. It's so hard.
Well, this one is confusing, not because of the way the player is playing, but because currently, which is not good. But the Leafs have a dearth of defensemen on the right side. Their best is Nikita Zaitsev, which is not great. We've talked about Zaitsev before. Yeah. He had a good rookie year. They signed him to a long-term contract, and he's never played well since. Chris Johnston reported yesterday that in trade circles out there, Zaitsev's name has been circulated, and that the Leafs may make him available, and that there's interest, but it would probably require them to attach an asset to him to move him. Now he's under a contract for another 5 years, but at $4.5 million. So there must be believers out there that believe that he's playing a role in Toronto, which I've been saying he's playing a defensive role, which he's not suited to. He's more of an offensive defenseman. He was in the KHL. He wasn't his rookie year. He was a point man on their power play in his rookie year, and he's not seen a shift there in 2 years. So
there's points to get out of him.
Yeah, and
Zaitsev a left shot.
Right, he's a right shot, and that's the thing. It's like.
That seems so odd.
Well, and that's what I wrote in my piece today, Peter, is the fact that this might be a sign that they're making monetary room to add a defenseman in a trade, or they could be making room under the cap to extend Jake Gardiner, because Gardiner is, they probably have to spend at least 5.5, maybe close to $6 million on a new deal, and they can't sign him and keep Zaitsev. So maybe they would be trading Zaitsev to create room for Gardiner. I mean, it's either or, but I mean, it's strange. This strikes me as more of a summer deal because he's got a $3 million bonus on July 1st. And
but the Leafs could retain that bonus, right?
They could.
Well, they'd have to retain it for the remainder. They'd have to retain $3 million, or the most they could retain on his salary is $2.25 because it's 50% max. And you can
equalize that out in some other
by taking a contract back.
Yeah, it's just a curious thing. I wonder. I hadn't seen that, so I'm just curious where, like, I agree with you, Mike, in that there's probably something bigger that the plan is if they can move him, this allows us to do X, ABC, right? But it's contingent on us being able to move him. So you start getting the name out there and see what happens. It's interesting. There might be a team that'd be interested in that.
I'll tell you, I think the Flyers would. I think you could trade Robert Hagg and either another player or a pick for Zaitsev, and I think that would help both teams. Because then you could pair Zaitsev with Provorov.
You could probably get the Canucks might even be interested in that. Yeah. That would, like, how old is Zaitsev?
27.
Okay, so he's a little, but it's not. If he was 25, I could see the Canucks really want to do that because it would sort of help their age gap. But when you look at the Canucks defense, right? You've got Edler there. It's a real hodgepodge of ick when you think about it. But the long-term stability, if he's got an offensive upside and Babcock won't use him, I mean, it's not a bad move considering
Zaitsev for Tanev,
and then you sort of throw in some other things to balance, right? Like it's not out of the.
I think that's a deal Toronto would do. Just not even because, or even more than just cap relief 4 years, 5 years down the road. I think it's they think that they could put Tanev with Riley and then move Hainsey down.
I think you give Tanev and Patan, and the Leafs give
Tanev and Goldobin.
No, I think Patan actually. I think
Patan's Winnipeg.
Patan's on Winnipeg.
Oh, that's right. I thought we were talking about Winnipeg. Sorry, Vancouver. Not
Brandon Tanev, Chris Tanev.
No, I know, and I got my Tanevs. Tanev's
mixed up.
Yeah. Yeah, Goldobin would be a good one, and then they level it off with a pick. There are a ton of questions.
All right, let's go with them.
I mean, Adam Vaccaro asks, will Wayne Simmons be traded? The answer is yes. We'll move on. Okay. That one's an easy one. I was asked if the Avalanche have a franchise goalie. They have a kid named Adam Werner that plays for Falstad. He might be the best that they have. So even Spencer Martin, I think this shines off him a little. He's 23, so I think that's their best bet. Let's see.
I mean, the assumption was Grubauer was their goalie when they signed him to a contract. So
I know, but I think he's proving that he's still a backup. Now,
right,
maybe
but you know what? Going into this year, Russ, I mean, there are free agent goaltenders. So, I mean, they're going, they can go out and spend money in free agency to sign Bob or to sign Howard or whatever.
Yeah, but then they end up with a situation like the Islanders where you're spending like $10 million on the goaltending position.
Yeah, true.
I don't know if you want to do that. So maybe they'll just upgrade defense and hope that Grubauer, the better defense, will do it. Okay, so Drew was wondering what the over-under was on Mike mentioning the Leafs' need for defense. Mike didn't mention it today, so Drew was wrong. Just saying.
You know what? Yeah, let me tell you. No. You could say that me talking about Zaitsev was in a way talking about it, but I didn't mention.
No. The usual thing. You didn't mention the usual thing.
Yeah.
Okay. James wants to know: does moving Del Zotto mean money to re-sign Edler? What do you think, Peter?
Benning has said he wants to re-sign Edler. So I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility.
No, I mean,
but I don't think the Canucks need to worry about money too much right now.
Del Zotto was an expiring contract, so next year wouldn't have had.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal for them.
I think it was just simply to move out and create space, save money. Yeah. And he wasn't playing, wasn't he? Wasn't he like a 7? Yeah.
I mean, the Canucks only have $47 million committed cap space next season.
That's it. Wow.
They have a ton of RFAs, and in Hutton, Pouliot, Granlund, Mott, Levo, Besser, and Goldobin, and I don't know, some guy, Tanner Kiro. I'm not familiar with them. So I mean, they have tons of room. There's no need. It's not a concern. I think if Edler wants to be back, he'll be back. They just have to figure out it'll be 2 years, $7 million or something.
Okay. The Sin Surfer rewatched the 87 Canada Cup, and he's asking if the Russian and Canadian teams were the best teams ever iced. I think that's fair to say, actually.
I'd have to look over a few other things, but
what was the question again?
In the 87 Canada Cup, were the Russian and Canadian teams the best ones ever iced? I know people will go back to the Soviet teams, and I watched them, but that still was a great team too. It's a good argument.
I mean, you could say the 81 Russian team that beat Canada 8-1 might have been better because they had Harlamov and they had Tretiak still.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, he was older then, but yeah.
In 87, I can't remember who the goalie was.
Okay,
it wasn't Tretiak.
Esmir wants to know if Colorado gets the first overall, would they ever consider trading it for a huge package? The answer is no.
No.
All right.
Close.
I mean, Colorado, I think, will be trading at the deadline to get secondary offense, meaning scorers for their second and third lines. If you have Jack Hughes as your number 2 center behind McKinnon, why the hell would you trade it?
Yeah. Mike says that he's heard a lot of rumors about Pens trading Brassard. If they trade him, who do I think they'll go after? I don't think they're going to be able to trade Brassard. I don't think his value is high, and I think they're always a team that needs players. He's got playoff experience. I don't see him getting traded.
Well, watch tomorrow because we'll do our GM game, and we'll put that because of Portsline's report of Brassard to Columbus. We'll try to sort of negotiate that deal because I'm not sure where Pittsburgh would want to go. And would they want a defenseman? Would they want a prospect? I mean, they're probably wanting some cap relief, but does that mean that they're confident with Riley Sheehan moving in as a number 3 center behind Malkin and Crosby? I mean, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Anthony wants to know, is it true the Flyers are buyers? X says they are. Yes, I believe they are. I don't believe it's smart, but I believe they are.
I think the Flyers can be buyers, and I think they can be sellers too. I mean, they're buyers because they want to change the team and get better. And if the right opportunity presents itself at the trade deadline, I think their mindset is the Flyers' way will make them do something that allows them to buy as well as sell.
Esmer wants to know our picks for the Jack Adams. Let's hold off on that because Mike and I are actually voting on mid-season awards next couple days. So we'll get back to everybody on that. Steve wants to know my thoughts. Adam Larson for Connor Brown. You know, the interesting thing is if Connor Brown gets played in the way Mike says that Babcock's using him lately, I could see that trade happening because Edmonton would get tremendous upside and the Leafs would at least get a solid defenseman.
And I'm not sure. I mean, the reason I think that Edmonton might want to do that is because Connor Brown played with McDavid and Erie.
Right, he brought that up too.
But the thing is though, Babcock loves Connor Brown. And Connor Brown right now, a lot of Leaf fans think, well, he's not worth $2.1 million because he's playing on the fourth line. Well, because Babcock will move that guy up in the lineup if one guy gets hurt. I don't think that's not if you're talking about saving money someplace on the Leafs, Connor Brown is not where you go. I mean, it's $2.1 million is not like going to break the bank.
I covered a game in Erie with Brown and McDavid in the lineup, and they both were good on the same team, no question. I don't know if they're ever going to really play together, though.
And Adam, and honestly, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Adam Larson. I really am not.
He can't play defense, Mike. He can't.
I'm not saying, you know, honestly, if it was Brown and something more to get Darnell Nurse. Okay, because Darnell Nurse is the type of defenseman the Leafs need. They need somebody with a physical aspect, and you know Adam Larson positionally is a good defenseman, but I just don't like it. I don't.
Jerkball wants to know: could the Leafs move Kadri for Brassard and a solid top four right-handed defenseman from the Penguins? The Penguins don't have that to give.
Oli Mata? I mean, who's that?
Yeah.
Who is that defenseman?
That guy doesn't exist. And honestly, it's like. You'd be trading Kadri at his absolute lowest value. He's playing the worst that he's played in 3 years. Again,
but the point is why would you do that if Dubas has the cap space, the financial resources, the picks, and the prospects to add to the defense? And when you shore that up, Kadri can go back to being Kadri, and that's exactly what you want in the playoffs because you're going to need Kadri being a bigger rat than Marchand is.
And the last thing you're going to do if you're Kyle Dubas is trade a best bang for the buck player like Kadri, who's locked up, I think, for 3 more years at $4.5 million. He's having a bad year right now. The only time he scored was when Matthews was out of the lineup. I think Babcock's going to get back to putting him up against like other teams' top forwards because he pisses them off and it gets Kadri going. But I'm sorry. I mean, I was once an advocate of them moving Kadri if it meant getting, you know, a good return. At this point, having Matthews, Tavares, and Kadri up the middle is one of the Leafs' best advantages.
All right, 3 more questions. First one is from Thomas. Is Amac injured now? How would you tell? So that's an easy one. But Thomas had a real good question. If the Islanders make the playoffs, will it be Barclays or the Coliseum? He hasn't heard much at all. I think it'll be Barclays because I don't think Barclays has the contract. They only let the Islanders play more games at the Coliseum because regular season games for them weren't as good as a concert. Now you're talking about NHL playoff games. I think they'll be at Barclays.
If it was up to the Islanders, if it was up to their fans, it would probably be the Coliseum.
It would be, but it's not up to them.
Right.
Cameron asks, who do we see Tampa getting? If anything, don't mess with what's not broken. Andre Schuster's playing now. Mike said so. I don't think they'll get him back, though. I don't think he's allowed back. They'll probably just get a depth forward and maybe a depth defenseman, but nobody that's going to break the bank either way.
Right. I mean, I believe Ruta, who they just got, is still in the AHL. So they essentially got him to be, in case somebody goes down, somebody who has some NHL experience and international experience that they can put in the lineup. But I think you're right. I think they'll just add a depth forward and a depth defenseman.
All right. Actually, there's 2 more really good questions. The first one's quick. Do you think we'll see a trade? Is from Esmir between Lamoriello and Dubas? The answer is no.
I think there's a possibility.
I don't think so. I don't think there's any possibility. I don't think they want to trade with each other. I don't.
If all of a sudden Anders Lee or Brock Nelson is available, I think.
But they're not going to be.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
They're not going to be. Not during season. And last question from Jonas. he's asking me if Lawson Krause would make sense for the Leafs to add some size and grit. You know, Lawson Krause could really play that role well for them, and he is a very good skater. I just have a feeling the price might be higher than what the Leafs really want to give right now, because I just think the price would be too high.
I'm trying to think of what Arizona would want.
I know.
You know, Bracco. I mean, they got a lot of U.S. Olympic guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Team USA hockey.
Yeah, would they trade Bracco for Lawson Krause? I wouldn't.
I think the Leafs might, because they desperately need somebody in their top 9 or top 12 with size and with jam.
I got to tell you something. You put Jeremy Bracco and Clayton Keller together?
Yeah, I know. As a Leaf observer, I don't want to give up Bracco, and I've said this many a time, and people will bristle at this. If they end up trading Nylander, Bracco is the right winger to play with Matthews. Yeah. He's the perfect fit. He's a playmaking winger who is a plus passer. I'm not saying he could replace Nylander. I'm not saying he's as good as Nylander. I'm just saying he would be a great fit with Matthews.
All right, the dam's breaking here. We got to go.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Not sure who will be on the show, but we'll be here.
Somebody will be
here. Yeah. 2 of us, 3 of us will be here. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. I'm still pissed off at the deli. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.